Labdien!
Hello, welcome to our talk on sustainability. Is green sustainable or is sustainable green? And now, in all ways, we are going to talk about greening, green and sustainability. Let's start with sustainability. It is a significant topic because sustainability has become a very important issue in urban planning, in other areas, because sustainability is a business opportunity. Also as an aim for development, as well as an impeding factor, and many others. And organizations, municipalities are coloring their sustainability green, and they are using green slogans. And it seems that they have enclosed in their guidelines, UN 17 development goals, but it doesn't mean that the sustainability has been made green. But making your image green it has become a very trendy issue, but is it something to do with sustainability in a system? Is sustainability green? We have read that UN Council for Climate Change has warned us again and again that CO2 concentration in our atmosphere in 2019 have been the highest in last 2 million. And UN Secretary General Mr. Guterres said that we have to eliminate fossil fuel before it makes our planet extinct. So green is green sustainable? What skills and knowledge is needed, or what is the diet of the active citizen? And can we become green? And what exactly is green growth? And is it possible? How to measure it? And what happens when sustainability turns into business? You can ask your questions in Slido. You can write in your mobile devices, sli.do. And with a hashtag jautājums, question, you can ask your question, and I will see it on my screen. And in the second part of our conversation, I will ask those questions to the participants. Slido questions or jautājums. After the hashtag. We have 4 participants in our discussion, and I will give them a floor in order for them to introduce themselves. Let us start with our virtual participants from Norway. Grete, hello.
Thank you for inviting me to this very exciting event. Yes, my name is Grete Rusten. I'm a professor in economic geography at the University of Bergen in Norway. And my formal competence and field of expertise and research interest covers a lot of the corporate and industrial issues. And now, in particular, in how these companies are moving, hopefully, in a more sustainable and green way. But it has also to do with the industrial and regional development more in general, about making values, technologies, and not least the forming jobs so that we have something to live on and to pay all the things we need to make our world a safer place. I'm also part of the Green Economy Network, which is an international research group working with several publications and discussions around these issues. Thank you.
Mēs priecājamies par jūsu dalību, Grete.
We are very happy about your participation, and I have to say to you and Thomas, if you do have a question, or EU would like to participate in the discussion, you have to wave your hand. I will look constantly at you. So if you want to express yourselves, then do wave if you want to add to Ilse or Viesturs. And now I give the floor to Tom.
Hi, my name is Tom Ryan. I'm an advisor for the Municipal Director for Environment, Urban and Rural Development in the municipality of Ålesund, and I was the key worker behind the U4C sustainability mapping that we have conducted in the city region of Ålesund.
Paldies. Laipni lūgts. Skatītājiem es gribētu teikt, ja
Welcome. If you need interpretation, you can get a device here behind you in the green tent if you need an interpretation either in English or Latvian. You can listen it both ways. Ilse, the floor is yours. Hello, I'm very glad to take part in this discussion. My name is Ilse Grasse-Tibilde. I am the General Director of Volkswagen and Audi, and I have worked with car companies, car industry, and I will look from the car industry perspective at these issues. Viesturs. My name is Viesturs Celmiņš. I am a city planner, executive director of Open Innovative Movement Verhem. I am also very much involved into societies or into local community movements. Sustainability is a buzzword lately, and many think that it means all and nothing. So my question would be, how do you understand sustainability, and why, according to you, green seems to be synonymous to sustainable? Let us start with Viesturs. I believe that others will define it from their perspective. It was interesting for me that why green is sustainable. Professor at the university said why panda became a cuddly toy, but Tasmanian devil became something that everyone is being scared of. So if you have a logo, you need a green apple leaf on your logo. That means that you are green. It's like Excel Mobile. In every economic journal, they look very green because their logo is green, but actually they are very far from being green. That is one thing. Another risk, speaking about sustainability, is the following. We are just ticking a box. So we are green because we have the following practices towards energy efficiency or transportation or fuels, exhausts, and whatever you are going to do afterwards doesn't count. It's like surviving measles. You are immune to that. And that is a big challenge for nowadays society, which wants to do everything quickly. A year, 2, maximum 3 that we have to achieve, but now we have decades in front of us to achieve things. Ilse, I would like to agree to what Viesturs said, and I would like to add in the context that it's something long. In Latvian, the word sustainable consists of word long-lasting. It is like a lifestyle. It's not 1 or 2 projects, and I like to talk about it as a ticket for the future. If you have this attitude, then we as an enterprise, as management of the company, we can all together reach environment goals and live with everything what we do. For example, Mole Group For Moller Group, we have defined a strategy for 2025. There are branches, for example, to develop our employees. For you as clients, we will create different interesting projects, potentials, and the basis of everything is sustainability. And how we can do these activities, remembering sustainability as the basis for everything, long term. And how about green color green, that sustainability is being green? I think that is a simplified way how to show it to people, how to demonstrate it to the people that we are environmentally friendly. I think that is a good marketing that is still lasting. It's interesting because I also think that also stage decorations are green. Why not red? Tom, what would be your comment?
As Wester said, it's not an easy question to answer, but I think the world sustainability needs to have a big context, and the WHO coined it already back in 1987. They said that to be sustainable, you need to harvest the resources of the earth in a way that you don't deprive future generations for the same kind of wealth that we are living today. And if you use that term, I think you can say that almost all sustainable activities can maybe be considered green, but it's not necessarily that all green practices are sustainable. If a certain way of doing something is green, but it's not sustainable in the long run because you can't maybe feed the Earth's population, then it isn't really sustainable in the long run, is it? So it's a very broad subject, but I think that definition of way back in 1987 is a very good definition of what sustainability is, and it's about giving the world we live in today in maybe a better state to our children and grandchildren and so on. And I think that's the focus you need to have when you're talking about sustainability.
And Grete?
Yes, Tom had some very good points about the concept there. But at the same time, there are also kind of dilemmas that seem to turn up very often. On the one hand, we want to have industrial value creation, we want to have social consideration, create jobs, health, welfare. And then we have the environmental consideration, which has to do with the protection of biodiversity and ecosystems and to avoid the material degradation, etc. And all these dimensions brought together tend to very often come in conflict with each other. Think, for example, on the one hand, we need jobs and materials, and we have mining industry. There's a lot of products in its origin that has something to do with mining or quarrying activities. But at the same time, these activities really can have a negative impact on nature. And some of these resources that we're digging out of the ground or elsewhere will also be, we're running out of a lot of resources at the same time. So I'll come back to some of these dilemmas as we go along. But in addition to kind of this Brundtland, we were bringing all these dimensions together, we could go way back to the 1972, where they were questioning the limits of the planet, of resources, and how we're going to deal with that. And I think that is the really big, complicated issue here. Yes.
Yeah. Paldies.
Thank you very much. The next question, and I think we can continue, Grete, with you, because you, as a professor of economic and geography at Bergen University, have studied green transformation in industries. Maybe I understand that's a broad issue, but maybe shortly you can tell this context, how it all started. The transformation, the greening of industry. What were the main slogans, and what is the status today, speaking about green transformation in industry?
Yes, slide 1, please. Yes. Yeah, I agree. It's a huge topic, but it's also very relevant to the crisis we're facing. I just previously mentioned the 1972 Club of Rome, where I could say some of these things really started when one started to ask questions from this expert group about the limits of the planet. And it was also followed up by a conference by the UN in Stockholm. Starting to questioning what the industry and in that time, especially the smokestack manufacturing industry, were causing problems in form of pollution. And then we could go on in history, and Tom already mentioned the concept with sustainability, but coining the term green came in the late 1989 by a British report, and they really then had a label. And in many cases, when we're talking about green, we might have brought the environmental aspect more in the forefront, while this economic, social, they are there, but this is given more attention than all the others. Because, as I already mentioned, this has to do with the fact that juggling with all at the same time is rather complicated. And for example, for a business, well, we have to make sure that we have safe and we have jobs, etc. But now we're really trying to go for the environmental issue. And the OECD in 2008 really saw this also as a way of getting out of the economic crisis. We had to come up with something new. And this green concept became like a lifesaver for a lot of the industry. And we have now seen in recent years that this green attention and sustainability, both with the climate crisis, but also in other ways, are receiving more and more attention. So it's not only like green painting, but it's really something that's taken very seriously. And in 2020, last year, it also became, one continued to pick it up through the European Green Deal framework, and also through an action plan where we're having the financial sector to kind of directing their attention and their most favorable investment objects among those industries that are the greenest. And saying that is that downplaying and make it more difficult for those that wish not to do anything about it. But then this is kind of the policy side, and fine, and then we have the industry, and where are these different companies? Slide 2, please. I have to move forward, and we can, if we go into a company or looking into the structural industries anywhere in Latvia or in Norway or elsewhere in Europe or around the world, we'll see that we cover all kinds of level of dimensions or strategies. From the ones, well, I could even add in the bottom left side of this figure, there could be those that are operating on the wrong side of the law. they couldn't care less, and they're polluting and they're not following the laws and regulations. But if we stick to those that are kind of legal and are trying to do something, we have those that are kind of the more passive participants, which merely they want to follow laws and regulations, but besides from that, do not really see that this as their main activity. So they're kind of more licensed to operate. So just follow the rules and then we can go on as usual. To more those that are actively using the green into their brand, to really pushing it up to be a thing that's talked about in the board, and also a kind of more and more a major component in their processes and their products. And maybe even there are technology deliverers of products and services that are not only making their own business greener, but is product that makes the world a better place in a green sense. So, and I think I'm rather optimistic for many. There are more and more companies that really see the value, both in an economic sense, but also see it very well, they really have a good motivation that the more we can operate in the kind of the right side of this green product development, technology development, it really makes sense what we're doing. It creates jobs, it attracts the younger generations, it attracts customers, it makes it stand out in comparison to others in this field, etc., etc. So I know from 10 years ago when we were talking about green, the business hardly knew what we were talking about, and their only attention were following kind of the pollution restrictions and regulations on that matter, but not seeing it as the core business model. So that's fine, but then of course there are others to speak here, but the problem with green becoming a business could be that green growth becomes the new problem, because the volume of activities is still too high, and that brings us back to the Club of Rome and the limits of the planet. Thank you.
Paldies. Pie šiem jautājumiem atgriezīsimies atkal nedaudz vēlāk.
We will return to these issues later, and now I will ask Ilse. You work in car industry for 20 years, and car or transportation is the biggest emitter in 2019. 27% of all CO2 emissions were created by car. The car industry is the biggest, the second biggest polluter, accounting for 1/3 of all emissions. A bit lagging behind before energy sector. I read the following: if cars, passenger cars, were considered a separate area, that would account for 27% of total emissions. How would you describe new stimulus in car industry? For example, whether Volkswagen Golf being produced in 2020 produces less emissions than the similar car produced yesterday. Or, for example, my car, Volkswagen Passat, which runs on petrol, I will be able to sell it in 5 years. What are the trends in car industry? Can you describe what are your strategies, motivations to think sustainably? A very broad question. I will try to structure my answer. First thing that I would like to tell you about how producer, not me, because we are sales representatives, but how producer sees this issue I could reiterate what Grete said on how high level this sustainability strategy exists in the company. And Volkswagen not long ago was on top of the scandal about this topic, and that was a huge crisis management, and it's still ongoing. But that was also an eye-opener or a driving force for Volkswagen to be on top with specific vision, products and plans, how to be one of the most diligent in this area. Volkswagen has a group strategy which is called Way to Zero, and there are defined four ways: use of materials, air pollution, third, environmental compliance, legal compliance, and underneath there is also air quality. Thus, we have defined specific goals. When speaking about 2030, we would like to say that 40% from all cars produced will be electromobiles. I am not going to prompt you what you should buy, but the trend today is that electric cars are taking more and more percentage-wise of our sales. Second way I wanted to mention is a myth or a discussion that the producers are producing electric cars, but batteries are the polluters when produced, and this is an inevitable fact. And we producers are thinking about that, and we set new goals, for example, to use recyclable materials. We are here on Scandinavian stage. Some years from now, the most friendly production plant in Sweden producing lithium batteries will be opened. So more and more we are thinking about what to do about the end of this battery and how renewable are those materials. And our aim is for them to be reusable by 95%. And third, answering to your question, I could more speak about our region, Baltic region, and what we as sales representatives in Baltic are doing. We cooperate and initiate discussions in ministries, also with municipalities, also with companies who are developers, who are building new houses or offices. With them, we are discussing matters about infrastructure, because we have to develop also the infrastructure for you to be able to charge your cars. And at the moment, Latvia is in the first place between Estonia and amongst Estonia and Latvia. We have a bit less than 200 charging units. Entrepreneurs are very actively developing that. We ourselves have set up in our dealer network the 80th charging station. We have 28 dealer centers, and at each one of them you can charge your car. So we are proving that we are not only speaking about that, but also doing things. What I understand from what you've said is that car industry can be green. Car industry is thinking about it and is setting at it as a goal, as a measurable business goal. And Viesturs we are closing in on your topic, city planning, urban planning. From this perspective, how much the thinking of Riga and Riga's infrastructure is ready for greening of transport industry infrastructure and also electric mobiles? Short answer is Riga is not ready. The long answer is the goals set can be actually discussed, namely whether we have to swap all other cars for electric mobiles for different reasons. Yes, they are more environmentally friendly. They are more quiet, but the issue about lithium batteries still remains open. Electric mobiles are good, better than diesel or others. We might have electric buses, ships, and trams. That would be a systemic solution. And till now, I am driving a diesel car, but I will buy electric car. This is not a progress. If we speak about aims that we have to fulfill against Europe and for ourselves, I don't think that we will reach those goals, and those are not new ideas. Those are, if a person wants to get to the goal on foot, then that should be promoted. So this is what I am standing for, that centers should be made more compact and accessible on foot. And this is an old new truth. This is fundamental. So do we need cars in cities at the moment? Yes. For people in Twitters on Twitter, we should also say that we are not striving for that. But the issue is about a totally different thing, whether those alternatives that we see are more environmentally friendly, whether there is an option or alternative how to get from A to B. Not at the moment. And we are not talking about expenses or convenience. In most cases, those are not existent. Especially for a male person to stepping out of a car, getting into the bus is something obscene. For most men, this is an issue of prestige. For a while, I lived in Russia, and there was a joke. If you come to a business meeting with an Opel car, then the elevator is not taking you to the meeting. That's one thing, the issue of prestige. But the issue of Riga is a big polluter, and the change in Riga will influence the indicators of the whole of Latvia. Okay, let us leave Riga alone. But we all are looking at Riga and saying they are failing. But when we change our thinking, namely, when we start all thinking of the issue of Riga as the issue of Latvia and the Baltics, that would be another step, another stage, but that is a long way to go. So we can have an alternative. I have a Porsche at home, but on a daily basis, I commute with public transportation or by bicycle or on foot. But that is the issue of car parks and other things. And the good news is that BMW and Volkswagen is doing much more than the state and municipalities. They have ideas of shared cars and other options, but how much we, the state and municipalities, foster that. I talked with two gentlemen recently whether we have or have not used COVID, because COVID was a fundamental turning point for mankind. What can we do? Nothing we can do. The 1st of September approaches, and we will be again stuck in traffic from the 1st of September. I read last year that total emissions diminished by 6.5%. That means that we have to talk about use of airplanes as well as stopping of all kinds of production. And the same survey indicated that in order to reach Paris goals, that in the next 10 years, the emissions should be diminished by 7.6%. That means that we should be living even in a smaller, slower, less mobile than right now, like 10 years ago. And whether a person is able to adapt. Viesturs, can you imagine, with your experience, a city with green infrastructure? If you can imagine, then you know where you are going. Yes, I can imagine in next 10 years. Many roads could be substituted by bicycles or by going on foot, and we shouldn't invest a lot. We shouldn't invest in new cars, in new bridges. Scandinavians are doing a lot, and we can learn from them. From the point of view of materials, expenses, until now it was the issue of enthusiasm of municipalities, of countries. Now EU is allocating money. The biggest problem will be that we will have no ideas how to get that financial allocation. We will not have projects similar to roads. Within 20 years, we cannot build roads like in Portugal. That is the issue of culture. Let us talk about Norway. Our colleague Tom, can you hear? Tom is also an urban planner in Ålesund in the west of Norway. I've lived there and worked there for some years, and Ålesund is not only prominent for Art Nouveau architecture and beautiful nature, but it is also this city created the second UN laboratory for smart and sustainable development. And it would be very interesting to hear, what does it mean? What do you do in your laboratory? What you deal with, as well as about your experience working on reaching sustainability goals in Ålesund, and what are your main challenges. Tom will also have several slides. Tom is going to try to explain what U4CCC means. Methodology that all indicators in a city are measured. For me, this is something new, and we are going to talk about it with Tom and later on with Viesturs. Tom, the floor is yours, and let's follow your presentation.
Yes, thank you. This will be, I could probably have used an hour, but this will be a turbo presentation. Basically, the city region of Ålesund consists of 3 municipalities, and we were the first Norwegian city to conduct a U4SSC sustainability mapping. I will show some slides now, just because a picture says more than 1,000 words, so it will be much easier for you to grasp the concept if I show you some pictures. Just the next slide. The U4SSC concept is based on the sustainability goals of the UN, and they consist of 17 different goals. The Future Lab is a very big part of our goal 17, but I will talk about that later, more about the in-depth later. But basically, the U4 SSC is based on the 3 levels of the sustainability goals. One is economy, second is society, and then you have the big large one at the bottom is the biosphere. Next slide. The reason why we went for the U4 SSC sustainability mapping is because we felt that having sustainability mapping that is has goals and targets given by the UN agency gives it a lot of legitimacy against stakeholders, policymakers, and also inhabitants. It's a very powerful tool to have a good discussion. Next slide. And this is basically the result. And it shows how good we are within the targets that the U4 SSC has set. The dark green, then you're within 95% of the target, and red is less than 33%. As you can see, the city of Ålesund we have our issues in some areas, and some other areas we are doing very good. I'm just going to give some examples from some sectors so you can better see it. Next slide. That is within economy, so you can just take the next slide again. One important aspect for a thrivable local economy is that you have a good ICT infrastructure. As you can see, basically some aspects of it here. Wireless broadband, fixed broadband, and how many households that have access to internet. That's 96%. Next slide. Other is innovation and employment. How much R&D expenditure is this in your city region? How many patents? How many small and medium-sized enterprises? Unemployment rate. I have to say that these numbers are pre-COVID, so they're maybe a bit lower than they are today, but that's basically it. And also how many in the ICT sector. It's not necessarily perfect because the city of Ålesund has a major engineering environment that isn't accounted for in the U4 SSC, but that's a different question. Next slide. Environment is another part of it. As you can see, we are not doing so good in electricity consumption. Yes, we have very green energy production in Norway. That's almost 100% hydro, if not even more, if we have export 1 year. But since we have abundance of hydro, electricity prices in Norway have been usually very low, and that has maybe make us use more electricity than we should in a sustainability point of view. Next slide. Yeah, good drinking water, but also we use a very lot, and we have also issues with we are not good on the sanitation area in the city of Ålesund. Next slide. Like I said, energy 100% renewable, but we use a lot of it. Also, our public buildings are using a lot more energy than they should. So it's a very usable mapping that is good for the city as a whole, not just the municipality. Next slide. Society and culture, that's the last part of this mapping, and that goes also into health, education, social diversity. Next slide. Here you can see that they measure both the poverty rate, the Gini coefficient, and that's basically the spread of wealth. So Norway is seen as a very equal society, and this shows that. But also we see that our businesses are sometimes very male dominated. because it's a lot of engineering, shipbuilding, and that's why we see that's a very big discrepancy between income between men and women. That's not something that's very, very good to be proud of, but at least now we know it. And also childcare availability and other. I think we measure around almost 100 metrics in this U4SSE sustainability mapping. Next slide. Basically, this is the U4SSE method is basically a roadmap, and we started with the city evaluation, and now we're working with the city profiling, making us a roadmap where we are starting to implement and measure ideas. And one of the ideas we have, next slide, is basically the United Future Lab Norway. It was one of our ideas that has been very successful. You can just take the next slide because it explains it better. And it's basically a part of the UN program for U4SSE. And we work together with 75 partners, mainly from the private sector. And what we do is basically work together to think about how can we be more sustainable business practices, and how can we reach the 2030 goals on how we conduct business. Because one of the partners is a local bank, and they basically outright say that if you don't have a sustainable business model, we don't think you're a company worth investing in. So already from the financial sector, we are seeing they have a big focus on sustainability because they basically don't believe you don't exist in 20 years if you don't have a sustainable business model. And also one of the tools we are using are a digital twin where we can work with data and visualize it in a lot of different ways, not only us in accordance to urban planning, but also businesses or other people that have geographical data that they can employ in a digital twin to see new ideas and make well-considered decisions. So today, the Future Lab has a portfolio of around 40 projects, and it has focus on all dimensions of sustainable development, like circular economy for all, like Grete said, that a lot of minerals now are beginning to get difficult to get up from the earth. It's important to have a good idea of circular economy, how you can make use of what you already have put into circulation. Yeah, I think I have tried to say as much as I can in my time frame. And also we have one good point is we saw that one of the metrics we were measured on is car sharing. And we didn't have any car sharing also, absolutely nothing. So that's also one project we started immediately with. And after 6 months, we had a procurement on a car sharing platform. And we had a deal with Otto, that's a Norwegian company. And basically what it is that we lease cars from Otto, and when the municipality is not using them, they are available for the inhabitants to book through an app on your phone. So that has been pretty successful, but in the end it will also be more sustainable, but also save the municipality for cost, because we can use a car sharing platform for our needs, so we don't buy a car that's maybe used once every 14 days. That is very economical, sustainable, as well as environmental sustainable. So that's one of the small projects. We are also having a port project on how to connect cruise ships to electricity, so they don't have to run the harbor generators. But cruise ships in 2020 and 2021 hasn't been that much, but we'll see when that comes. I think I have said what I can, so next slide, if anybody has any questions, it's maybe easiest to answer.
Jā, paldies, Tom, par izklāstu.
Thank you, Tom. One question. Do I understand correctly that this methodology is aimed at UN 17 goal, the goal implementation in urban environment?
Well, we actually did a project on that. The whole county of Møre og Romsdal, they had a project where they did the U4C mapping for every community, every municipality, from the smallest one, it's maybe around 2,000 inhabitants, to the largest one, which is us, is around 80,000. And they scale. You can basically use them on any size, but they are predominantly better for a bit larger urban areas. But I think the sustainability focus on everything is something that you can do on all sizes of areas, also urban and rural. Because the main goal of this is to see where you are and to create an environment where you discuss on how you can be better. And also the Future Lab is a big part of that, to make all businesses, municipalities, inhabitants, academia, education institution, make all talk together on how can we solve the problems that we have ahead of us in the best way possible for our society. I think that was maybe an answer.
Thank you.
Viesturs represent an organization, VFresh, received Norway grant financial allocation in cooperation with Ålesund municipality as well as Riga municipality. Viesturs, do tell about this project that will be financed by Norway grants. You have not yet started your cooperation, but how this cooperation is going to look like, and whether you will be able to implement this methodology in Riga, where exactly. So we have not received, but fought for. In Latvia, those are two different terms. We didn't receive just by sitting there. We fought for it and won. The aim is the following. Similar to what Tom's already said, the municipalities do not know what they have and what they are dealing with. When talking about RDG 17, that are meant for big territories like states, and for cities they were not prepared. And we said it would be good to adapt them for Riga, as Ålesund did. That's one. Second, we could measure if the sharing infrastructure is not there, how about building such an infrastructure? Inclusion of societies, public territories, okay, that is one thing. It is good that we know, but unfortunately municipality cannot exist on rumors. That's why we need systematic approach, and those indicators allowed the city to say this is where we are in 2019, 2020, 21. This is what we do. And territory similar to Ålesund, we are going to work on communities. This is a smaller unit in the city, and we are going to measure different areas, for example, public transportation, greening, society, how we are doing, where we are doing. So in order to see the progress, whether Riga is going towards the sustainability. At the moment, we don't know where we are going. We are all rubbing our shoulders. So is it enough to have a new methodology, or do you need more human resources? In this case, we are having bottom-up approach. This would have been the task of the municipality, that they measure their own goals. We might tell them about this methodology. This is a tested methodology in Ålesund, but Riga municipality, Riga City Council doesn't like this idea. They don't want to question, to survey people in communities. But I hope that one day they will be integrated into planning documents of Riga City Council. This is the only way how we can approach Riga City Council, because if they had it elaborated in their papers, we could keep them to their word. This is how municipality is working. We want to tell systemically that we are better by, say, 2 or 4%. And good news, what Tom already said, this is a way how to measure yourself against others. Why I'm saying that Riga would want it to stand out in the Baltic level. Speaking about sustainability, we are more environmentally friendly. Why it is important? Because, for example, Norwegians are coming in with a project. They have information about life quality, about other indicators. For them, it is important. That's why these ratings are important. That's why we have to see the development. Development is necessary if we want competition and development, sustainable cities. If you want to live in a good city where quality of life is high and good. This is our aim. This is worth fighting for, because we fight for our city to be competitive amongst others, and thus we will be able to earn more, to get more project allocations. Very interesting. And what is your interest? What you expect from cooperation with Riga within the framework of this project, Tom?
Basically, learning from cooperation is basically the whole idea of SDG Goal 17, and basically the sharing of experiences, both from Ålesund to Riga and also from Riga to Norway. I think that the mutual benefits of exchanging information is a learning experience from us, as well as the learning experience the other way. As we said, we have already performed the U4C analysis, so we can contribute with our knowledge there. And also we can see what the city of Riga has done, and maybe they have done something very clever that we have some challenges with, so we can learn from exchanging. Okay, you've done something that's very clever. Excellent, maybe we can use that, and the other way. And also it's important that how the U4SSC metric is built is built in a way that the most metrics you can see how other cities are doing. It's the same metric in every city. Maybe some statistical variations, but basically it's the same metric in every city in the entire world that has done this. It's not just in Norway. We have 20 cities and a county, more cities to come, and also a lot of cities down in Europe has also done this. But I think the main important issue with the U4SSC mapping is that even though the municipality facilitates this, we see that reaching the 2030 goals is not something that we can do alone. We need to do it in cooperation, not only with the municipality inhabitants, but also the business sector and also the education sector. So it's a whole approach to try and solve some of the issues we are facing to reach the SDG goals and basically make Ålesund a better place to live and Riga a better place to live.
Paldies. Starplaikā ir ienācis arī komentārs no kāda skatītāja, kurš raksta ilgtspējīgi.
A sustainable city from transport infrastructure is any old city. One can walk everywhere. It is interesting for guests and good for locals. What do you say about that, Viesturs? This is, yes, it is inevitable. Yes, when we go to a European city, we look for Old Town. No one is looking at the apartment blocks because old towns are those who have small galleries, restaurants, cafes, places where you can walk around on foot. That's why it's attractive for locals and tourists. It is kind of a wave, and trendy wave in Europe, starting from Paris to Amsterdam, saying that we are going to create transport solutions and everything for you to reach every possible place within 15 minutes. So you will not need your car. You will be able to get everywhere, either by public transportation and then on foot. So you will not have to take your kids to kindergarten. So 15-minute principle of urban environment, which is becoming more and more popular. Here we see that between Ålesund and Riga, there will be a very good cooperation in reaching sustainability goals. Speaking about molar Baltic import, also good cooperation between Latvia and Norway. Ilse, what are the differences and similarities between Latvia and Norway? Speaking about greening of car industry, are the strategies similar? What is working in Norway? What is probably not working in Latvia? Whether there is a demand in both countries for greener cars? Are they comparable? Coming up with figures. Last year in Latvia, we sold about 400 electric cars, but the car park in Norway consists of 95% of electric cars. This is the big difference, but Moller Baltic has a forefront. We can learn directly from our colleagues and see how it is implemented. So some facts. We know that people from Norway are online here. They can reiterate what I've said. We as business representatives have noticed a difference, namely strategies of the state. In Norway, electric car market exists for 10 or 11 cars, and there were special measures taken by the government, special initiatives, sustainable, not for 1 year, not for 2, but for tens of years, meaning that ministers to follow will also continue the same. This is an important factor. My colleagues also mentioned that in our case, when we work with ministries, it is like a personal opinion. One minister is for it, the other one is not. It is something unstable. There are no unifying incentive measures as there were in Norway. We as entrepreneurs are kind of supporters. But the government should be the leading player. One thing. Another fact, from 2010 until 2015, it has been measured that there would have been 400 million tons of CO2 more if there were no Norwegian EVC policy. Their impetus in the world's health. There are also many surveys amongst Norwegians whether you would prefer to swap back from your electric cars. 90% of responders are very satisfied with using their electric cars, so meaning that this is a win-win solution. If we talk about Latvia, In our case, we heard that there will be a support system, 4,500 euros if you acquire an electric car, but that's again short-term support. For how long this support is going to be there? What's the support for the future? In Estonia and in Lithuania, it is ongoing for several years, and there's a certain budget allocated. When the budget is exhausted, you can apply for it next year. Again, it is not entirely supported, and not all people are supported in their endeavor to purchase electric car. And what I mentioned again about this plan Fit for 55, with which we have to diminish by 45% the pollution, compare 1919 to 1935. We understand this is not something to do with electric cars, but everything that Tom's presented, all those factors. And I believe that Norway differs from Latvia with the following, that from small age in families in Norway, the green thinking is established as the way of life, way of thinking, and this is how we differ. In Latvia, you are fighting for policy to be friendly to electric cars. I am not saying that we are fighting for, but it is difficult to understand who is responsible for that. Who are interested parties? Are there any incentives? Now with Fit for 25, these are mandatory measures. In Norway also, and in Europe, you can use public transportation lanes. Yes, that is possible. Also in Latvia, and also in car parks, you can go without paying, and other incentives are there. I wanted to add charging stations, whether they are accessible. And many people are living in block apartments, and there are no charging stations, and I think they will not be built in the nearest future. When we talk about decentralization, with decentralization, we will not be able to reach sustainability goals. We have Smart City Incubator, and we have a team of engineers, and they have a solution how one can charge a car from a lantern. For the last 3 months, we are fighting with an institution, I'm not going to mention the name, where when they would give the permission to charge the car from the lantern. There are 6,000 lanterns. And I think they will be able to use, they could be very beneficial to use for recharging. If only we got this permit from a certain institution. This is a call for movement, but our institutions are rigid. They don't want to do that. So these 4,000 private cars are mainly purchased by owners of individual cars, not block cars, thus making electric cars a matter of elite. If you are living in a block apartment, there is no possibility how you can charge it. But that's not to blame the producers. Producers, they are ready to produce and give those cars for even cheaper than now. But how are you going to charge? I really want to charge it close to home. Another historic fact I recently read. At the end of the 19th century, electric cars were more popular than petrol cars. Why they didn't survive? Because that was a short range. So we are in a similar situation. This is fictitious explanation, but at the same time it's true. Ilse, can I drive with electric car from Riga to Vecpiebalga and back? It depends on the model, but the car which is purchased the most has the range of 300 kilometers. So you can do that, but on the way you have charges. And the main rule should be that every 20-30 kilometers there should be a charger. And thanks to energy companies and our road directorate, we have those quick chargers more and more, and you can move around Latvia and go to Estonia and Lithuania. What Viesturs mentioned are the problem is with block apartments, with multi-storied buildings. You need 20 to 30 minutes for normal charging, but you can do that while shopping, for example. There are many solutions how we can do that and learn from Norway, but we are far from good. So this sustainable city is not only depending on green industry, but urban planning is also very important. Returning back to Norway, Grete, based on your research, can you come up with an example where we can see successful transformation of an industry into greener one, for which industry has really changed for green, where it's not on the paper, where it is a fact, and how can we measure whether a company is green? And another question, how typical or atypical are those green solutions that bring to negative or lead to negative influence for the environment?
Yeah, I'll start with a success story before we have a more critical look at if success is really a success. Okay, so let's start with the first. One of our major sectors in Norway has been the metallurgical industry, like the production of aluminum that goes to cars and the maritime sectors and all over. And it started for over 100 years ago and was luckily connected to the use of affluent hydropower sources in electricity. But at the same time, it was very pollutive industry. It had smoke, fluorides, and the forest around was heavily affected. And it was really using tremendous amounts of energy. And if we see this industry now, for example, Hydro, we are seeing that they have worked very, very hard to be more energy effective. Like one of their factories now have been through a process where they changed the technology, reduced their energy use with 30%. And this really means quite a lot, since we know that this factory uses a volume of energy that's almost half of the capital of Oslo. So that's one thing. But if you also at the same time look at other aspects, they're working almost like Tom was talking about the municipality level. They go through their business, their corporation, and see where can we make improvements. Another positive side is, of course, the circulation of aluminum, which is now a big business area. Because in our circular economy and also in our more modern global economy, we will be seeing more and more use of aluminum as it is a lighter material and it's more environmental friendly than a lot of other, for example, fossil fuel-based plastics, etc. So circulation, bringing it back to the factories, the melting, the caviar tubes or whatever, or parts of car components, and make processing it once more and then bring it out for another round is also a priority. At the same time, do we see this industry and for many other industries that if we go back into other parts of the value chain, they have challenges. For example, in the extraction of alumina in Brazil and elsewhere with the pollution difficulties that has to be solved and has to be taken seriously. So this is kind of, but we are seeing that there's lots of things going on. And another success story is kind of the young industries that are coming in with the young generation that are really skilled and really want to make a green from the start and have this ability, as we know much more about this thing as compared to what we did for example, 100 years ago. I could mention, for example, Vestre, which is a producer of urban furniture. So it'll tap into our previous discussions. The park benches and all sitting groups and so forth. And where they are really trying to make this into robust furniture that you can take it back to the factory, have it renewed. And now they're even using plastic debris from all those collection initiatives that we've had along the coast. We have lots of plastic pollution, and they're using this material into the production of other park benches and so forth. And they're really trying to be as circular as they can be. Their newest thing going on is the idea of making the most environmental friendly factory that you can think of. So starting from scratch, they're now in the process of building a factory close to the Swedish border in the woods. And this factory, they will be trying to do what is possible to save energy, to have a sustainable use of materials, to make it as an international showroom, has an open atmosphere. There will be windows there. People can have walks in the area and look at, see the production that goes on. They're even talking about on the grass roof on top, people are invited to set up a tent if they want. So they want to really tap in, then they want to see on all kinds of dimensions, how can we be as environmentally friendly as such. So they really try to make a difference, and they call this whole initiative the Plus. And of course, in the bottom and part of it, it's not only this ambitious plan of going green, it's also about business. And this brings me to this third slide about the rebound effects. And we have touched upon it indirectly. I was talking about the kind of the extraction part that was a problem for the aluminum industry. We could look into, if we went back to the example with the electrical cars, yes, the mining of the cobalt and the nickel and the lithium as well is a problem. And if we also look to the point where we get the electricity from the various to various uses, what are the energy sources? Remember, still in Europe, in Asia, and many places, we have large volumes of energy made of other sources than renewable sources, like coal, gas, petroleum, etc., nuclear that has caused some difficulties over the years. And if this is what, we're just moving our attention, we think we have a car that's electrical, we have more and more devices that are electrical. But if this means, for example, that this is another reason for why, for example, China, that produces a lot of the stuff we're using, are putting up another coal plant, or this is also the reason why we cannot fully be independent of petroleum or fossil fuel resources in Europe, because we use tremendous amount of energy. So this means that kind of we really have to broaden up both geographically, but also kind of in different corners of the value chain to understand is this really green? So it's not about greening Ålesund or Bergen or Riga or anything. We also have to take into account the replacement effects, for example. What about all those hundreds and thousands or even millions of cars that are now obsolete and replaced by electrical and more environmental friendly cars? They may still be running on another continent in Latin America or in Africa. So they're still there, and they're still a problem for the planet. And we could use many of these examples. So what I'm saying is that we have to, even if we are as consumers thinking about how we can do our best, we have to understand that this longer picture. And this brings me to my final point, and this fourth slide. Next slide, please. Slide number 4. Yes. This calls for a coordinated action, and I think the earlier discussions today have already tapped into this fact. You can collaborate between Ålesund and Riga, and you can learn from each other, and you can exchange ideas and so forth. That's one thing. The other is the value of the governments, politics. We need politics as guidelines. We need regulations, somebody that checks and have a critical eye, and somebody that takes responsibility. We need standards and certifications, so we know that this will represent an improvement, because each and every one of us, either it's a company or a person, have no ability to know if this is for the best. But we have kind of, if we have certifications and standards and regulations, we also have something that the industry can go by, so then they know what they should go for. Innovation programs, and also what Tom touched upon in one of his projects, public procurement. Governments, or on the national level or on the regional level or municipalities and so forth, they are important markets, and they can be the kind of trigger and be the first aid for developing new markets of various kinds that are green. So of course, like car sharing initiatives or something, if the first and major customer will start with the public sector, then from there it could then move on to private consumers. And then of course it's us as our consumer behavior. Okay, when we get out of this COVID-19 crisis, will the first thing we will be doing is that to look into and see where we're going on holidays? Are we going to Florida or Hawaii, or where are we going? Can we keep on doing that? Can we replace our car or mobile telephone every year, every second year? Or should we try to kind of look for more robust products? Should we also ask critical questions to different industries or in our choice of products and so forth? So demanding customers and being, paying attention, and also to be able to ask the right question and trigger the demand so that the industry and others go in the right direction is very important. And I think this brings me to the end of this, which is this coordinated, and we have to do this together. So
thank you, Grete. I think we have to round up because we have only 5 minutes left for the discussion, and there are some questions perhaps. Skatītājiem lūdzu, ja kādam
if you have any questions, there is a catchbox microphone. You have to speak into the box. I have no question, but I have an idea. We in Latvia have a very good situation. Auto motorization level is not as high as average in Europe. That's good. And also, policy is what is most needed, because at the moment there are political decisions also in urban planning will dictate what people are going to buy or not going to buy. At the moment, the idea is this is greener, that's why I'm going to buy it. Thank you for the comment. Another comment through Slido, namely, we have to start with the following, that green cars are very expensive. They are costing 30,000. Inhabitants of Solitude cannot afford that. So Ilse and Viestur, can you comment of that? One about the price, and maybe not to substitute your old car, because where are you going to place that? The electric cars are expensive, yeah. But the step towards the accessible product, comparatively accessible product, but we cannot call it a popular car. The price itself, as well as support from the state, additional support from the state, 4,500, as well as additional things that you can use. And as the end result, the clients are calculating feedback. How would it be now, Riga, Vecpie, Balga? How much it costs you, and how much would you pay for electricity? It's a long way to go until we become a popular car, but maybe we'll be there. A car is still a car symbol. In Solitude, maybe it's show-off or in order to compare with your neighbors. That's the reality of Latvia, to show off. But the car is not a rational purchase. Half of its life it spends standing, but it's necessary purchase. It's not irrational. But in the nearest future, I believe that many roads might become more convenient if you take them, use public bus, meaning that you will use public bus or a bicycle to take your child to a kindergarten, and if you go grocery shopping, you can use car sharing. 5 years ago, we laughed at the idea, but that was 5 years ago. For car industry, 5 years is a little time, and now we all have tried a sharing of car. This stigma that you enter a strange car and you go somewhere. Another comment, we have 1 minute. Okay, this topic is very wide, and the time of our discussion is over, but this topic is worth continuing, and I hope that Tom's and Wiester's cooperation will be successful, and we are going to hear about that more and more, and I hope that electric infrastructure is getting better, will get better, and infrastructure will improve. Thank you, everyone. Ilze Grase-Tibilde, Toms Ryans, Viesturs Celmiņš, Grete Rusten, and let's meet in other discussions.